I think it's really important to be able to share ideas and not get shot down, because ultimately, I mean, I come from a scientific background where you have to have statistical significance, a big retrospective, prospective study to understand is something real, like the debate about hydrochloroquine, right? Does it work or doesn't it work? And by the way, you can manipulate the data any way you want it, depending on what base you want to be on. But
100%.
Traditionally, the scientific method is a good way to go forward because it takes away the subjectivity of whatever you're looking at. But in reality is, for most of our lives, we're looking at life through our prism and through our own subjective experiences. So it's really an opportunity to sit back and say, look, here's what I think the idea should be, but be open to consider other ideas, because just like running a business, it's not about a hero like Bill Gates that was so smart that he led the pack. Now, in reality, Bill Gates was smart, Steve Jobs was smart, but he had a ton of equally smart people right behind him creating the magic, right? And with their ideas, they built the company. It wasn't one idea that from 78 to now was the same idea. It's new ideas coming in when there's new data and you see shifts in the markets and the trends. So boy, is that important if we can have that perspective. And that way we can divorce ourselves from our ego and our position and say, wait a minute, if the goal is to learn and become smart and more intelligent beings, you got to listen to everybody, right? I mean, maybe certain people say, well, you know, he's a serial murderer. Okay, fine. Maybe you can learn a lesson from that guy too. You always learn a lesson, right? So, I'm saying on the balance, you want to make sure your mindset is, hey, I can learn from this person. I can grow from this person. And you know what? Maybe it's uncomfortable and I don't agree with the perspective, but so what? It's powerful. An opportunity to grow and expand your database, if you will.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I think you really nailed the heart of the fight between the ego and the higher self. Our fear of being wrong, we tie our identities to our ideas, right? And if someone attacks my idea, they're attacking me, right? All of a sudden I take it personal. And if I can separate, that's what I love about science. Science is constantly trying to disprove theories. It's spending more time trying to see how wrong it is than to prove how right it is. And if we can come to a space where for me, I've taught myself to get excited about being wrong. Like something else, because the truth is there is more that I don't know, and even more that I don't know. That's the fact. What I know is a flame in pure darkness. And if it's brighter than somebody else's candle, it's irrelevant because the darkness is so great. The unknowing is so great. And so when I allow myself to constantly understand that I know I don't know, and I don't even know what I don't know, then all of a sudden I'm constantly seeking, where could I be wrong? And not I own wrong, but where could a perspective be flawed? And how can I adjust it and move and evolve? If I'm agreeing with myself a year from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now, I think I'm not doing something right. And so the constant evolution is the internal. This is where I'm moving. This is what I'm focusing on. Everybody else's ideas I take in, but I take it into my own research, my own study, and my own guidance system, and I move from that space. That freedom from detaching from being right or wrong to asking what's right, what's better, what in the end is building us up. And even if I am right, if it costs me the relationship, is it worth it? You know, in relationships, one of my mentors a long time ago goes, you can either be right or you can have a good relationship. You choose. Sometimes being right shouldn't be the end goal. If you're Batman and justice is all that matters, then you have to be willing to lose people. But if you care about relationships more, then you're willing to subdue those ideas because the idea of love is more important to you. Clarity on what's important is everything.
Yeah, no, and I'm not sure it's mutually exclusive when it comes to relationships. You can still have your ideas and yet be mindful to say, this is valuable in context. This is important to protect. And while I can have these ideas, I understand what this brings to my life and how it's sort of an undergirding and a foundational element so I can be this thing. And I like what you have to say, because boy, I think the trick to being happiest and happy in life is growth. Yes. And I'm not talking, waistline. I'm not talking weight.
Right.
As a person, you say, you know what? A year ago, I'm totally different. I've taken steps to better myself and learn and learn and learn. And your analogy of, you're a candlelight in the darkness. As we get older, I would argue, like a black hole, that darkness is ever expanding and just gets bigger. The older I get, the more I realize I don't know. And it's humbling. And it's kind of humorous when you get around CEOs who are really successful and people that know their craft and they've got this oversized ego, but you go talk about other elements, they kind of look at you like, what? And so check the ego, man. Get over it.
Real.
And if
Real
you really
talk.
want to be happy in life, it's about continual, unending improvement and growth. Because I would argue people that suffer from suicide, people that are in that mindset in that way, they've completely limited their view of themselves and their idea of what they could be. And they're trapped in a time. They're trapped in an event. And they can't go beyond that event. And it's the antithesis of growth. And I would argue that if you can expand the mind and certainly take stock of maybe what got you that thinking, the suicidal thoughts, and this isn't to minimize it, because I've known people that have taken that unmistakable act, but the point is we have a limited mindset. We're in that way. We're selfishly thinking about the issues. We're myopic in looking at those issues, and the opportunity is to really say, from a growth perspective, how can I recast how I currently see the world? How can I recast this event? And by the way, there's dogma that plays, right? You have people coming from these families, these Judeo-Christian, hard-edged, legalistic families. You kiss the boy, you did this, you're going to hell. And they actually believe it. And that's their belief system. And that is completely nuts. And I would say to people that, hey, if you're in that way, who says what those people say or share with you or their dogma is truth? The only way you know is you have to go explore, which is what you're saying, Burke. You got to go and expand. You have to sort of touch on everything and challenge every thought that you believe in. Because what's killing people is limited beliefs from somebody else, which you said earlier. That's certainly not helpful. But if you can simply say, my job is always to be a change agent and grow no matter what. And anytime something that's coming in that's negative, that hits me emotionally, that destroys me emotionally, you got to look at that. That's not real, and that's not helpful. And that's just a person's opinion. And don't give it so much weight, and continue to reach out, open-mindedly explore.
Right. It's powerful, man. I love this. And I feel that, it's cool because as we have this power and this engagement to evolve and to grow, one of my professors at Cal, Dacher Keltner, at the end of this guy he's incredible psychologist. He does a lot of positive psychology and understanding just the human nature of how we're just born to be good. That's one of his books. But at the end of the whole course, what he said is, he goes, if you remember anything from this class, my main thing that I want you to get out of this is don't take yourself so seriously. And I feel like that's always the cherry on top of all the work that I do and all the pontification, all the research and all the science and all the ideas and all the coolness or all the craziness or all the intensity. At the end of the day, if we don't take ourselves so serious, we just won't be as triggered by our own actions or the actions of others, by our situations, both externally and internally. And that freedom, and it comes with age for most people. As they get older, they're like, why did I care so much about what they thought? But to be able to magnify it on a large scale, exponentially, to where I'm not taking myself so seriously. The work that I do, I care about. And I want to make a massive impact in the world. But at the same time, I'm not going to take it so seriously. That gets me to do two things. One is I get to make an impact and I get to love my life at the same time. Right. And that's what, when we talked before, I talked about the work-life fusion, where it's not a balance of one for the other. It's they're one. And what I must have is a life that I love while making an impact that I love to have. And when they come together, that's when I have freedom. So no matter how opinionated I am, no matter how many ideas I have, at the end of the day, I don't take myself that seriously. And I constantly remind myself that as important as this stuff is, it's not that important.
No, I think it's critical to have that perspective, because we're not getting out of this place alive. There's death and time. Those two absolute things are going to happen. And if we could have that perspective, in other words, if you could have the perspective of when you're 80 now, imagine what your life would be like. And the question is, how do you get to that perspective of an 80-year-old who has really developed that brain, that cranium, that skull full of mush to the highest level? How can you get to that point now, or at least be moving on that trajectory to have that perspective? Because really it's the perspective that gives you the joy. If I have the wrong perspective, I'll never have joy, no matter how many psychologists I went to, therapists I went to, because all I'm going to do is keep repeating the same stupid mistakes over and over and over again. And the idea of growing and looking at life differently. And, by the way, and you mentioned this, hey, so what, you had a setback. So what, you made a mistake. Celebrate that. Embrace it, because that's like a PhD. Even though we don't have the awards and the documents that go with it, I got it. Right. But hey, you know what? That's like a PhD, level education, whether it's a a relationship that did not work out that you really wanted to work out.
Right.
You learned a lot from it, or the job that you didn't get, or the job you did get. Sometimes you get a job and you get the job and you're like, is this really a fit for me? Not
This
so
is what I
much.
want.
So, boy, everything's an opportunity to grow and learn. And if we could have that perspective, like it's not the end of the world when our expectation, our blueprint, our roadmap didn't work out. It's actually just the beginning of you evolving as a person, the way that God or whatever you believe in intended.
Yeah. There's something just so powerful about evolution. Your ability to change. Somebody was asking, what's one of the things that you're most grateful for? I'm grateful for the fact that what I start as, I don't have to be forever. Like that, not only social, economic mobility, but I'm talking the fact that my body can be shaped a certain way and I can work out and I can change it. That my mind can think a certain way and I can work on it and change it. That if I meditate, I can open up the way that I see the world. That if I just look at something and then shift my perspective, a whole new thing shows up. And when that whole new thing shows up, I then can act completely different to it and then create out of nothing something. That human ability to evolve, that ability to grow, that ability to be better than I was when I started, bro, above everything is the cool. It makes every second living so incredible. Because if I was just this and destined to be that, then I'd be bored. But it's this crazy, chaotic experience of life that we have, and our ability to flex, move, adapt, trip, fall, get up, build, connect, meet new relationships, break from those relationships, whether beautifully or chaotically, and still constantly evolve. That is the game of life. A quote that I always say, that what if you lived your life as if goals were just excuses for adventure? Like if goals were just excuses for adventure, then all of a sudden I wouldn't be afraid of not meeting a goal, because just setting the goal gives me the impetus to act, to exist, to show up, to experience this adventure. Even pain becomes a valuable experience. I'd rather go to a country and despise it than not know ever what that country is like, because it adds to my map of experiences. And this ability for us to do that, to evolve and to grow and to see the world in a different way, just by changing our perspectives or changing the relationships that we have, just by making these crazy adjustments, is one of the most insane and beautiful things that we have here.